Well, somewhere up in the mists there you can see the mountains around Lake Tahoe. Certainly gleaming there in the foreground you can see the mighty Dash. We're on our second leg of our transcontinental, then transoceanic, then global journey to mark 200 subscribers and to get us a whole lot more knowledge about how to go flying where there aren't many navigational aids and there aren't many places to land except the ones that you have to land at. So right now we're going to head from KTVL to KEGE, which is Vail, Colorado, Eagle County, another Orbix airport like this one, and it is tucked into a mountain valley, and it is one of the most scenic approaches on Earth, and a rather difficult one, and it is going to be flat out fun to fly. So let us get buttoned up. I've already plugged in a flight plan. Let's take a look at it. Got a misty cockpit here. So we're going to take off on runway 36, and we are going to fly. Which departure procedure are we going to fly? We are going to fly the one that takes us to a hold. Here, let's just pull up the airport here and get a hold of it. Here we go. Okay. We're flying the Shoal 1 departure, and that is going to take us northbound on the back course of the localizer here from runway 36, and then we are going to climb to Shoal. And because of the terrain around us, it has provisions for a hold, and we climb in the hold till we get above 13,000 feet. Now, we are at a field elevation of about 6,500 feet, 269. So it is entirely possible that in the distance of 9.7 miles here between our takeoff and Shoal, we could conceivably be high enough that we won't need to hold, but let's see how it goes, okay? And if that's the case, what we'll do is we will abandon flying all the way to Mustang here, and we will continue on straight to Hat, and that will get us on a direct routing to a number of fixes, which will then take us on in to Eagle County. And it's right north of Aspen, which is another amazing airport to fly into. And then probably from there we're going to end up going to Denver and on to Omaha. So let us get started. Now, we need to push back nose right because that's the only way we're going to get onto a taxiway. Before we do that, let's just do our before start flows. Bus tie is tied. And everything's kosher. Bleed air will come off. Anti-collision light will come on. Doors are shut. Gear pins are pulled and stowed. They are. Steering should be off. Parking brake should be set. And it is. So we will call for push by going to Data and Services, and we want to go nose right.
Ground, we are ready for pushback.
We are ready now, please release parking brake.
Okay, we'll listen to the nice Dutch man. Flip this to 2.
Parking brakes released.
pushing back now. You're clear to start the engine number 2.
Okay, so we press start, move our condition lever to start and feather, and monitor our push. Okay, we want to come out right to there. And that should do us.
Pushback complete. Set the parking brake.
Okay, so we'll set the brake.
Parking brake set. Can we get clearance at number 1?
The tow is free and clear of most gear. Clear to start the engine number 1. Have a nice flight.
Over to 1. Start. Move up our condition lever. And turn on our nose wheel steering. Monitor our start. Move our gauges over here so we have a little bit better view. Alright, we got 2 good starts, so we'll move the condition lever up to max on number 2, and we will wait a second for our temps and pressures to come up on number 1, and then we will move that up as well. So 2 is fully up. And up can come number 1. And while we're at it, we can turn our generator off and our APU off. Turn our bleeds on. I'm going to turn them to max for just 1 second to clear off our windshield. Turn on all our heats. And make sure our passengers are seated. Bus tie comes off. And turn on our window mist, or anti-mist. Set our flaps. And because we want to have a nice steep climb angle here, let us use flaps 15. And we are going to go upstairs like the proverbial bat out of you-know-where. Check our runway heading. Runway 36 is 357. So we'll set that. Set. And we'll set our initial altitude to 13,000. And hit Alt Cell, and that is set. Check our weather. 2986. Set that. Set and checked. So what we will do is we will go to this here taxiway and make a right turn, go down to runway 36. And then get on out of town. Spoilers go to flight. Now, if this doesn't seem to you to be the sort of best that Orbx has to offer, be aware it's an incomplete representation. This airport has not yet been equipped with an installer for prepared version 3. So I kind of shoehorned it in a variety of ways. And bottom line, what it means is that you're not seeing every last bit of Orbx goodness here. You've got the runway textures and a few of the buildings and some of the people walking around. But just be aware, this is not the full airport. It is not the best they can do. It would be really good looking in prepared 2.5, and you'd see all of the custom buildings and custom taxiway signs and things like that, but they are not available here, and that is through no fault at all of Orbx's. That's really just because I've sort of half-assed the airport in here. And we are taxiing with the props in our ground beta range. You can see we are surrounded by terrain. And we have to come up, let's see, we're at 6,200 feet, so we have to come up 6,800 feet in 10 miles. So we have to go upstairs at about 600 feet per mile. So we'll see if we can make it. Because of that, we're going to do a max performance takeoff here, even though we've got plenty of runway. Because I really don't want to have to hold. So we're going to try and outperform our SID and get a little special dispensation to get going. The SID is the way it is for obvious reasons, for terrain clearance. So we check our runway sign. We are on Bravo, and that is 36. It says 36, and we're about to turn to heading 357 on the runway. We'll also look at the numbers, although it's a displaced threshold, so we may not see the numbers. They're a ways up in the distance, so what we'll do is we will make sure that our heading is set correctly. Okay. We can turn our approach lights on. Our anti-collision lights can come to white. Our logo lights can come on. Our bus tie is closed. Our APU is off. Our heats are on. Our caution lights are clear. Our seatbelt and no smoking signs are on. Our takeoff trim is set. Our rudder trim is set to 10 right. Our aileron trim is neutral. Our course is set. Our altimeter is set. Again, this is shoal, which is where we would be holding if we have to hold. We are going to try not to. And with that said, let's turn our pumps on, our auto feather on, gust luck off, and let us get going. Now, what we'll do is we're going to set an M top takeoff. Normally it'll set us to 90% or N top, but we're going to do 100%. And the other thing is, you notice how our bleeds are amber. That means we have not set our bleeds right for the takeoff, and we should set them to min. And now if you look at them, they're white. So advancing our power. Seeing that MTOP is set, and it is. And because it is set, we will probably end up exceeding our 10 degrees pitch up. I'm going to be climbing based on speed. We're also going to keep our flaps up a bit longer than usual, and we're not going to pull our props back. And up we go. Gear up. Okay. We're keeping our flaps in. Don't know if we're going to make it. But the hold is going to hold us basically over the lake where there's no terrain. We just kill that AWAS here. Done with that. Alright, we might make it. Worst comes to worst, we'll fly the hold. And our entry to the hold is, I believe, 351. Let us find out. So we're going to turn to 351, and yes, that is our inbound for the hold. But we are already at 10. Got 3,000 to go, and we still have 2 miles before we turn toward our hold. So I'm just following the flight director here, hand flying it. Okay, 1.5 miles till our intercept. We're keeping our ground speed low and our climb angle as high as possible. And we're now at 11. We're at 11 and we've got 4 miles to go. So we are almost certainly going to make it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start bringing... No, you know what? Let's be safe. Let's climb the rest of the 1,500 feet on max performance here. Then I'll start to lower the nose and bring down the flaps because, again, we are surrounded by dangerous terrain, so there's no sense in flirting with disaster here. Okay, 1,000 to go and 3 miles left. So we're going to avoid that hold altogether. And we are going to go direct to 6. So direct to 6. Aston. And we're also going to get ourselves cleared up to 270. So up we go. And up can come the flaps, down can come the nose, and there's the terrain we just avoided. Just let ourselves accelerate slightly here. And if you look down there, you will see that that's why we had the hold, and that's why we had that minimum altitude we had to hit. for the very simple reason that if we hadn't hit that altitude, we would have hit the mountain. So I'll put us in IAS mode here. There we go. Climb at 170 knots. We can do that. Trim down slightly. Now trim up slightly here. That should bring us down to 170. And we'll just follow the flight director on up. Again, hand flying as much as I possibly can. Outsell. Briefly. And now we can, having flown the plane, take the time to turn off our auxes and pumps, turn our bleeds to normal, turn our lights off, and tell our passengers they can go do what they do best. Take a quick look here. Alright, we're nicely established in our climb. IAS mode. Getting over the stuff. Gotten through probably the icing, but keeping an eye on it. And cut the video here, and I'll see you right before top of descent. We're back, a little bit bumpy, a little bit icy, over some spectacular terrain and in some really amazing weather, as you can see here, as we get ready to shoot our approach into Vail, Colorado. The Mighty Dash is in fine form, as you can see. In the cruise, you missed a little bit of drama. We had another prop controller failure and had to shut down the number 2 engine and restart it. And again, I'm not sure whether that's a problem with my crappy SciTech controls fighting with the sim, or whether it's some characteristic of the plane that I don't know about, or whether it's a bug in the new professional version. I can't really say. But what I can say is that everything is all set now. We are at flight level 270, coming down to 14,000. We've already programmed in a VNAV descent. You can see it's 14 minutes away. We are going to be landing, unless the weather changes drastically, at KEGE on the RNAV approach to runway 25, which is really the only instrument procedure they have, is a variety of instrument procedures into 25, because the terrain is too severe around here to do anything with, except run and hide as fast as you can. The last time I flew in here, I ended up way high on the approach because of the winds that came gusting into this sort of gap in the mountains right here where the airport is situated. Wound up grossly high, broke off the approach to the right, and then circled around to the left and entered a right downwind, and then looped around and came back this way, and it was quite a lot of fun. You end up flirting with terrain over here and over here and over here as you come back towards the field, but you can't say it isn't cool. Alright, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to grab the touchdown zone elevation for this runway, which is not on this particular chart. So instead we will find a chart that does have it as we get ready for top of descent. I also will confess, here in New York, I live about 3/4 of a block from a Gray's Papaya hot dog stand. So I went out and I got a couple of dogs and a fine pineapple fruit drink, all for the low price of about $5. So if you think you can't eat cheap in New York, it is absolutely wrong. All right, we'll pop in Eagle County Regional and touchdown zone elevation. Make it 6547. So we'll make note of that. And we'll drop that into our HUD. Elevation 6547. This will give us the proper readings on our HUD so we're not misled about where the runway is. The minimums on this approach, I believe, are about, I want to say 2,300 feet, but they're reasonably high up because it's even though it's a straight-in approach, it is, well, it's an almost straight-in approach. It's a kinked approach with a little circling component to it, a slight little turn. And our runway length for landing will be, have to look that up too. I'm not sure why it doesn't publish it there, so we'll have to look it up on the LDA approach, which says 6540 and runway landing 8,000. So put in 8,000 here. And we'll make the runway 6540. Only we won't make it that, but there's no back function on here, so 6540, enter. All right, and we're going to make our glide path 350 because it is going to end up being steeper than normal, so we'll have better guidance on our HUD. And 11 from top of descent, again going down to 14. Let's just brief our approach. We will hit Kremling here, and then we'll start to come down. Only it's this approach. We'll hit Kremling here and start to come down. 14 across these mountains, and then Kimball, then a right turn at Powers, and at Nepri we will be 2,400 feet above the runway, so that's going to be quite something. The runway itself is 6540, so that puts us at 8,900, and it puts us at 8,900 here, which gives us 3.5 miles to come down 2,400 feet, which seems just a little bit steep. Let's see how we're going to do this. Better yet, let's see what the LDA approach, where that puts us. That puts us 7.8 miles away at 1,800 feet. So let's switch over to that. So let's do that approach instead. Because I get the feeling, and I'll check our weather in a minute, but I get the feeling that our minimums are going to be lower than 2,400. So pop into our FMS, go to our flight plan, go to menu, go to arrival, and you notice we've got the RNAV approach coming in from RLG. We're still going to be going from RLG, only instead we're going to be taking the LDA approach here, number 4. These approaches do not have corresponding plates, so I'm not sure what they are in the database, but we're not going to take our chances with them because we can't verify them with the proper plate. And again, we're coming from RLG, and we'll go back to the flight plan, and we now have to adjust our V nav. So we'll go to RLG. Let's check that again. Ah, it has a no link, that's why. Okay. So delete that, and now we've got continuity in our flight plan. But let's find out what our restrictions are here. So RLG is this is one annoyance about the dash here, is that it does not let us see our flight plan there. There we go. Okay. So VOAXA at 13,800. So VNAV VOAXA number 3. 13.8, there we go. And we are set, and our TOD is in 7 minutes. And now we've got a new approach to brief. So set our altitude to 13.8. There we are. And again, we go to Kremling. And again, we go sort of similarly to our RNAV, only over different waypoints. VOAXA is our IAF. We turn on to what seems to be an ILS, but it's actually an LDA, and it's called an LDA because I just forgot what LDA stands for, but it's localizer with something in altitude. And it is not, strictly speaking, ILS because it does not fly us totally straight in and doesn't leave us off. It leaves us off at a circling point. See, it says for LDS/glide slope, fly visual to airport heading 246, and that's for 4.3 nautical miles. And that's at SIPQ. So, and let's also check VGSI and LDA glide path not coincident. VGSI angle is 3 degrees, whereas this is 3.8 degrees. You see, it says glide slope 3.8. So let's make the glide slope now 3.8. And the other thing we'll do is we will set up our frequencies on nav1 and nav2, 109.75. So we'll tune that in real quick, right before we hit top of descent. So we'll tune it in nav1, and now we'll tune it in nav2. That is to give us the maximum information on our HUD, otherwise the HUD will not switch into an approach mode. And let's find out, the course is 246, so we'll set the course 246. On the left, and here comes our top of descent. And we will set 246 on the right by holding down our format key, seeing the preview of our LDA displayed, setting 246 here, and our VNAV enunciates, and there we are. Other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cross-fill our flight plan just in case the HUD actually requires it in both. Cross-fill the fuel. There we go. And we'll pop ourselves back into map mode here. And you can see here's our approach course coming around this way. All good so far. Square up the heading bug. And we are from top of descent. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. In that time, we will seat the passengers. I'm going to turn off our anti-ice for the moment, although probably it's going to have to come back on. Heats are on, lights are off. Good to go. Got our first constraint plugged in right here. And we're going 6 miles a minute over the ground. Go to our flight plan and see what we can see. And it is set up just a little bit wrong. RLG, it's got a direct to, so let's echo that. Direct to 9 RLG. Okay, now we should be synced up. And we should be hitting our VNAV TOD in just about 60 seconds. Going to zoom us in a little bit on our map. Other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on our weather radar and going to set our right hand display to radar. Lists it in standby, but make it so it's on, and it's on. And we'll see if there's any nasty stuff in our way. We've been getting pretty good gas mileage. We've got a bigger tailwind than we had just a few moments ago. Here comes our vertical profile. Let's just roll off a little power as the nose comes down. And down the hill we go. Now you see how we're banking a little bit off to the left and we're getting a little bit out of coordination. That is because whenever you adjust power on the mighty dash, you have to adjust the not so mighty rudder trim because the yaw damper is especially not so mighty. As we do, we'll check our weather. And I think it's been deteriorating, so cloudy 2967, few at 6, broken 7500, broken 9500. All right, we can work with it. Not much in the way of winds. That's good. 2967. So we will, as we roll off the power here, put that in our standby. 2967. Okay, it's the same. In the meantime, we'll see if we can arm our approach, and we can. And it doesn't offer us tuning because we've tuned it manually. When it comes up tune approach, what it's going to do is it will, if you've got your ARCDO, which is your radio control console, set to FMS, then you can tune your radio through your FMS manually or automatically. And that is what that tune function is. When it says tune approach, that means it tunes in the relevant radio nav aids. And as we can see from the radar, we don't have much, which is good. And again, the radar measures moisture. It does not measure cloudiness, just moisture. And let's look at our constraints as we go along. And they are very, very high, as you can see. Let's set our airfield elevation while we still have the time. So that'll be 7,000 because it's 6,500 plus 500. Some airlines, they set exact field elevation, and others set 500 above. We'll set 500 above. We're looking for flight level 180. We'll also be cognizant of the fact that as we get right to here, this is a steep turn, and what will happen is we will drift in the turn off of the lateral path, and when we do, if we do it enough, it will disconnect our VNAV and it'll put us in pitch mode, and it will not enunciate that it's doing it. It won't beep, it won't put up a caution, it'll just, you'll all of a sudden look down and you'll find yourself not in VNAV mode. So what we have to do is then decide whether or not we're going to manually alter the descent. It will still present the profile, and we have to decide whether we're manually going to continue the descent, alter it, shallow it, deepen it, and then arrange it so that we re-intercept the VNAV path if we want to still have VNAV guidance. If not, we can do it ourselves, and we can just calculate how far we have to go and all the rest of that. But it's a Friday night, and I've got 2 hot dogs in me and a little bit of a pineapple drink, and I mean, who knows what can happen. So instead, we'll try to do our best to make the electronics work for us. I'm going to set a decision height, radar decision height, radio altitude of 1,800 feet, even though it really specifies a minimum descent altitude. The reason why I'm doing it is just because my warning, my enunciator here, will not speak up unless it's radio altimeter. It won't give me the call outs for approaching minimums, so we're just going to accommodate it, I suppose. And also we have to accommodate the fact that we're going to be going over terrain, so it's going to be warning, it's going to be giving us false positives. Alright, so we're looking for 18. Just quickly cross-check our descent. It says practically no vertical deviation. We should be going down at 1463, and we're going down at about 1500, or very close to it. And that's all good. It's a nice shallow descent. So far, so good. I've set a VAP a little bit higher than our VREF. It's 5 knots plus a knot or two of additive for the wind we're going to be facing, which isn't much. And now we'll set our altimeter to 2967. Let's just double check right here. Yes. And we'll also brief our missed approach, which is going to be a climbing right turn direct to SXW, which is this VOR. And we're going to be climbing up to 14.5. Wow, we are up there. And bring in a little bit of power because our speed is coming down. We are making this turn, and you see how our lateral deviation is going up, which is okay. There's no significant terrain around us. And we're going to get ready to hit some icing. And we're looking at the VNAV path here, and we're waiting to see if it disconnects. And if it does, we'll just hold the altitude until this needle comes back in and re-intercept. It's not a big deal. See, we're cross-tracked, and that's because you can tell because the CDI is displaced. And there's VOAXA, and we have to be at 13.8. And we've got 13 miles, so that will take us down 900 feet plus 3,000, 3,900. So that will get us very close to it. And I can help a little bit by bringing us down in speed a bit as we're going down the hill. And we're going to come into a misty bowl, misty mountain valley here. This could get interesting. Our runway heading is 246, and we'll remember to set that. Now you see how we're lining up now to re-intercept our flight path. See how good a job it does. Check on our frames here. I'm just interested to see what we're doing in all these clouds. Not too bad. And we're slightly above profile. That's okay. It's better to be a little bit high here than a little low. I can tell you that much for free. Just see what our HUD is showing. Our flight path vector is down. Our nose is slightly up. And you see here we're moving to re-intercept. And let's just say we're 8 miles from where we have to be at 13.8. 8 miles, so we can come down 2,400 feet. So that's 15.4, 13.4. And we have to be at 13.8, so we will make it very easily. And now that we are getting close, let's pop in our pumps and our auxes, turn on our lights, turn our bleeds to min. So far no icing. Set our props to reduced noise profile landing and move the condition levers full. We're going to be flying a flaps 15 arrival. It's a long runway, but we're high up and there are winds and it could get interesting. And again, our missed approach is set 14.5 and climb to that while turning right and then hitting flying to our missed approach fix, which we can do SXW here, in which case we will turn to a little bit less than 360 and then turn onto the 001 radial, come in. Alright, so we're approaching our first constraint, which is 13.8, and we are going to hit it very smartly. And look at that little remnant of the HUD there. That's a little bug that they're working to fix. Alright, our next constraint is 12.9, so we'll spin down to that. You know what, since we're going to be hitting constraints all the way down, let's just go to 71, give or take, which is going to be our missed approach point. Or is it 81? It is 98, 8330. Make it 8300, and we'll be turning final in a second. So, because we will be, I'll slow us below 200, bring in flaps. 200 is our flap extension speed, and there we are. Down come the flaps. That'll bring our nose down just a touch, which is what we want. And I'm going to spin our heading bug to 246 so I don't forget, because that's the heading we're going to turn to when it comes time to turn, right there. Alright, we'll pop up the HUD and we'll fly the HUD.
2500.
Now we're on autopilot, and you can see we're very slightly nose up. Let's pop that up so you can see where our torque is. Staying right around that speed, right around that picture, and we're turning final. Now, as soon as we turn final, I'm going to flip our nav source over, put down our gear here, flip our nav source to nav 1. And we will intercept the localizer. Okay, we're coming around to 246. Pop us into heading select mode. And the airport is loading there. We'll flip our nav source over to nav 1. And we will intercept the localizer. First thing we'll do is put us in nav mode. And we've acquired the localizer. Next thing we'll do is get in another notch of flaps and come off the power. Let us intercept that localizer now. And we're above the glide slope. And there is... Now that's a false positive. And there's the road that we can follow all the way to the airport, and there's the field over there. And we are going to, in a second, just fly visual. But for the moment, let's just watch our glide slope come in. And I'm going to dip below it to lose some speed, because you can see I'm right down already at the minimum. Okay, our pappies are good. We're red over white. Let us go visual.
Minimums.
And we are landing. Let's get rid of this. Start to feed the power in. And let the speed come off. Now you see how we are flying the localizer, but it's not lining us up with the runway. That's what an LDA approach is. And no, Jerry Lewis does not hold an LDA telethon every Labor Day. That's MDA. Alright, we're going to fly out to that building right there and then hook a right. Better yet, we'll start hooking right now. And you can see we're still getting glide slope guidance, but it gets unreliable beyond a certain point because we're not lined up with the runway. Let's trim up a little bit. Take stock of our crosswind, which is just negligible from the left. See how it's reading localizer excessive deviation, but that's because not because we're deviated from the runway, but because the localizer is deviated from the runway, and now we are deviated from it. Alright, let's correct a little bit. Throw on just a touch of crab here. I'm jinxing myself because right now we are absurdly stable. There's the shopping center. Now, of course, if I don't grease this, there's really no excuse. I mean, look at this.
Too low, flaps. Too low, flaps.
I'll tell you what that mistake is in 1 second.
Too low, flaps. Too low, flaps.
First, let me grease this landing. What that was us landing on flaps 10 and setting up our warning for flaps 15. And whenever there's a mismatch between this little switch right here, which says 15, and our flap setting, which I thought was 15 but wasn't, it will bark at you. That's another reason why our approach was absurdly stable at that speed, was because we intuitively, by adjusting the pitch and the power, we intuitively worked out a very, very nice approach path for the flaps we had. Now that's a plus and a minus. The minus is that we landed with the wrong flaps. The plus is that by simply knowing where the nose of the plane was going and knowing how much power we had set and knowing what the runway picture looked like, we managed to, on the fly, come up with a very nice V approach. In other words, we put the picture together, and once we put the picture together, the numbers worked themselves out. On the other hand, you can, the alternative is that you end up fixated on the numbers, and if the numbers aren't what you expect, you get into all sorts of panic modes. So, or you end up trying to hit a particular number, and then you end up with the plane in the wrong position, not because it was the wrong number, but it was the wrong number for your configuration. If we had disregarded what our senses were telling us and what our instruments were telling us about where the nose of the plane was pointed, how fast we were sinking, how fast we were moving, and simply tried to hit our V-app for flaps 15, we would have been sinking too fast, and we would have smacked into the runway nose high and probably risked a tail strike. So instead what happened was, and this is entirely a blessing and a curse of doing it this way, is we just I unconsciously adjusted. And so, within the parameters we were working with, which is that we were visual with the runway, and we were very carefully monitoring our pitch and our path, it was perfectly fine, and everything worked out. And as you saw, that was a 50 foot per minute landing. It was a beautiful landing. But if it had been a short strip and we'd greased it on like that, going 7 or 8 miles an hour faster than we would have with flaps 15, then we would have had a real problem stopping. Or if the runway had been contaminated, had been wet, we would have real trouble. So on the one hand, it's nice to pat ourselves on the back and say we great intuitive pilots worked it out just by feel and by sight. On the other hand, if we'd been in a slightly different situation, that feel and that sight would have led us to an absolutely beautiful landing and then a broken airplane at the end of the runway. So, we bent the rule, we didn't break it, and came out okay. Anyways, we pull in here. Our next flight is going to be a quick hop to Denver, And a quick turnaround there. We'll show you what a turnaround is like, and then we'll continue on to Omaha as our cross-country, round-the-world flight of the Mighty Dash continues. Till then, enjoy your weekend, and see you next time.